Welcome to a Planet Destiny podcast. We've never done this before. I'm here with Sir Wallen, one of the other Planet Destiny staff members. It's actually the first time that we've spoken. It's not for any type of animosity between us, other than he's on Xbox and I'm on PlayStation.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. We keep that separation strictly professional. Unfortunately,
yes.
We can't do it any other way.
I wish I could actually play with you because it seems like you're a pretty solid player. Could have used you on our team.
I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. That goes a long way. But yeah, I play on the Xbox, and I'm a content creator here for Planet Destiny, and it's a very enjoyable experience so far. I really enjoy being able to work with a like-minded community about putting up just solid content. We all do our own little thing, and we kind of collaborate, but we provide for the community in a very unique way, I think. So it's a lot of fun.
And what exactly do you do? I know you do a lot of stuff here at Planet Destiny, but you have your own channel as well where you focus on like some lore and stuff surrounding Destiny.
Right. So if you've ever like watched, I'm not trying to compare myself to these guys at all, but if you've ever watched like Epic Name Bro or Vit Vita, the Dark Souls lore guys, they do a fantastic job in presenting the story in sort of a different way that is normally presented. And one of the big criticisms of Destiny is that the story is presented sort of in a dull way. It's not presented in the best way.
Just to put it lightly, yes.
Yeah, and I don't want to say I'm an apologist for the way the story is presented. I agree with a lot of the way the story is presented, but the lore behind the game itself is there. That is undoubtedly there. There's a lot of information that is there. And so I just basically I take what is provided by Bungie and essentially try to interpret it in the best way so that the audience and the viewers can get the most out of it. That's what I do.
Okay, yeah, and you do an excellent job of it. You have brought a lot of those videos over to Planet Destiny as well, and it's really nice to just have that information out there for the community as well. Because the story behind Destiny is really fascinating, and I wish it was in the actual game.
Like I said, I share the same viewpoint. I know a lot of people are in the same camp you are, and I think they did a fantastic job with the Dark Below story and the way they presented it with Eris and how they sort of presented the story and gave it one main driver of the story, and you sort of learn more about this individual, and you kind of understand her story as what happened. She lost her entire fire team, and then she in a way redeemed herself by putting you through the ropes and challenging you to get it done, and you redeem her ultimately through doing the missions for her and stuff like that in sort of a an over generalizing kind of way. But I think they did a great job, and I'm excited for the future and the way they present the story.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to agree with you there. Like, there's a lot of little things that they did too, where like, say, you first walk up to Eris, she just looks kind of creepy, and then when when you actually down Crota, or as you progress through her story up to downing Crota, like she starts saying other stuff to you, and like if you after I've downed Crota, like I go talk to her now, and she like is even creepier. She's like, "What was he like when he died?" It's like, "Oh,
right.
Whoa! I just want to turn in this quest to you, honey."
I know.
And then like where normally the ghost or your Peter Dinklage would talk to you on the missions, now it's Eris talking to you on the missions. There's a lot of little stuff that I definitely enjoyed as far as the story went.
Right. And I think that that whole part where she talks to you after you beat Crota is it's a very minor thing. Mm-hmm. But I think it shows a lot of dedication in the sense that, there's a lot of games that sort of don't apply that end game in a way where, if you play Skyrim or if you play, Elder Scrolls, anything like that, that is there, where you beat the main story and then individuals talk to you, be like, oh, you're the hero, you're that individual. I think that's great. I'm glad that they added that in a way, in a creepy way they added it, but they did it very well.
I agree.
I'm glad that's there.
Well, speaking of Eris and her storyline, the big thing that she's wanting to do here is kill Crota, and we've already killed him on normal mode, but this week the hard mode was released, and both you and I have fully cleared it, correct?
Correct. Yes.
This is about 24 hours after it has been released. What do you think overall of it? Has it lived up to the hype? In terms of difficulty, how was it for the most part?
I mean, we went in with our original team. We hit World 8th, I believe.
Yeah, you guys were World 8th.
Right, and we didn't go in with that same team, which is kind of unfortunate because our team was actually 3 people that I knew, and then 3 people from LFG. So okay. it was a sort of a randomized group. but it was very interesting in the sense that they did amplify the difficulty in sort of a unique way. They added an enrage timer on Crota, and they sort of changed up what happens during that fight. There's no more chalice, so you have to sit there and prioritize how you're going to heal and like which classes, which gear allows you to heal, that kind of stuff. I think that they did a good job, but I'm kind of a critic of it because I feel like it's artificial difficulty in a way.
I'll agree with that statement. Yeah,
you know, they just kind of amp up the enemies, and they're like, well, the enemies are harder and you do less damage, and that's kind of about it. You know that. Yes, is it difficult? Definitely. But is it challenging in the sense that you are challenged to your wits and strategy? Not really, not in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, aside from essentially one minor alteration to our strategy, we pretty much just had to make up for the fact that we were doing less damage. So we had to go a little bit harder in the start to make sure we could hit Crota while he's in the middle. Like that's pretty much it. And then instead of going down the center to kill ogres, we just did it from the right and left sides, which honestly was a little bit easier than everyone going down to the center.
Yeah, they added that. I believe we never went down to the center. I know that strategy is very popular, and I definitely agree with that strategy and how it works. But they added a gatekeeper now there, so you.
Yeah, it makes it a little hard to do that.
Yeah, definitely. That gatekeeper is no. We had our theories on how they were going to make the fight harder. Originally in normal mode, if I'm pretty sure you saw this, but in normal mode, up on top of where the crystal was, there were two gatekeepers hanging out up there. Right. Our assumption was that during the fight, those would drop down at some point and just cause havoc to your team. So we were prepared to kite them, get one individual to just take the aggression of that gatekeeper, both of them, and just run around, and just kite them the whole time. What we were not prepared for was the 10% enrage timer. We were not prepared for that at all.
I did the math on it, and it's like 17.2%, I believe. It takes exactly 18 hits to down Crota with a sword, or 18 smashes. So at, I believe, 15 hits is when he enrages.
Right. Yeah, we originally thought it was a glitch. We were like, why is he enraging in summoning Oversoul? And then we finally figured it out. And after you said something about how it's an enrage timer, I was like, okay, that definitely makes sense. I like that fact.
Yes, I really do like that. It puts like an extra act of desperation into the fight, so I do commend them on that. I mean, I believe lore-wise, like this is supposed to be kind of a one-way mission type thing for the Guardians that are going in to kill Crota, and that aspect of the fight definitely seals the deal with that whole theme that this is our last chance to kill him right here in these next 10 seconds. We have to do it now, or else we're all screwed.
Right. I mean, it definitely drives this sense that he is some sort of demigod, and you are really just not powerful enough to face him. So he is in a way toying with you, or attempting to drive your light in a certain way, and I think that's utterly fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So how long do you think it'll be until the hard mode's soloed?
Honestly, I really am doubtful that is going to get soloed for a bit. I know there's a very prominent guy out there called the Legend himself.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure you're aware of him. And
I think his name is Slayer Age, and the
Slayer Age, right?
The clan he's in is the Legend himself.
The Legend, right. I follow the YouTube channel. Some of the stuff he does on there is utterly amazing.
Yeah.
It just is fantastic. I have never seen individuals do that before. I'm going to be surprised if that thing gets soloed anytime in the next week. I think it's going to take a lot of determination and a lot of luck. There's a lot of mechanics in the fight that sort of have to break your way, that you have to get away from. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting.
Indeed. Okay, so aside from the Crota fight, as well in the hard mode difficulty, like nothing was really changed either. A lot of the mobs were just upgraded to tier 2. Like I was really expecting some new mechanic in the bridge encounter fight, or in the in the abyss fight, but nothing really happened. I was a little kind of sad about that.
If you're talking about the additional mechanics on bridge, there wasn't any really. Like the mobs sort of stayed the same, and everything that we originally encountered with the fight pretty much stayed the same. You took your same strategy and just applied it over. I think the only difference was, I believe, I think the amount of enemies was a little bit different, but other than that, I think the bridge fight was identical. Just the level difference.
Yeah, it felt like once you got the other 3 members across, there were a couple more enemies that would come out.
Mm-hmm.
And just again, the health of them was increased. So it's artificial difficulty, really. Yeah, I really would like to see some sort of new mechanic on there. I did like how they've at least fixed all the cheeses associated with it.
Right.
So there could be some legitimate attempts at killing it on hard mode.
Mm-hmm. No, Lamps kind of caught us off guard because Lamps was legitimately difficult for us when we were trying to bring up the bridge because the ogres shooting at you in a distance and then the knights rushing you, they do not drop as fast as they used to with them all being elite enemies now and coming at you. So we were very unprepared. I think the way we broke bridge initially, at least during Lamps when we formed the bridge, was one of our blade dancers just supered and got really lucky as we formed the bridge. Everyone went down and he got across. I found that part very, very difficult. We got lucky there. And I enjoyed that part of the fight. I think, like you said, I think the key theme is artificial difficulty. In a way, there still are mechanics there that are challenging, but it sort of feels as if they don't, or they didn't really know exactly what mechanics to place in. And to be honest, raiding in general is something that's difficult to do and master. It took WoW many years for them to figure out mechanics that were challenging and not just kind of spongy.
It took until pretty much like the end of Burning Crusade for them to really, really think of that. Every single fight in WoW, like the original Naxxramas was held as like, oh, this is great raiding achievement. It's pretty boring. It's a bunch of trash and then big spongy bosses for the most part with one mechanic. And I think it will take Bungie some time for them to actually figure out what they want to do with this game in terms of raiding.
Right.
One thing that we haven't really seen is like, some sort of timing in fights where it's like, oh, we have to have this happen like by doing this. Like in our, like say in our fight for the Death Singer, we got her down. She started doing her singing thing. And then, we're all throwing rockets and grenades at her while she's just sitting there. And then she's not going down. Her health's just staying like a smidgen above, 1%. And we're like, oh God, is there something else we need to do in this fight? Quickly, everyone look around for something. And then it turns out it was just lag. But, I was super excited for like those 5 seconds. Because like, oh, there's some new mechanic here. This is awesome. I can't wait to discover it. Oh, my connection's just being crap. Never mind.
Right. Well, I think they amplified the time, or they reduced the time where she goes into her 30-second timer.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that is the fundamental change, and obviously the enemy difficulty. I mean, we did the same strategy.
Exact same for us too.
We drop shriekers, and then we go in and we just jump around, fire rockets. Yep. That's pretty much what we did. No, I mean, I definitely don't disagree, and I've been reading the Bungie forums and a few other places Reddit, and but it's a good guesswork to see where the community kind of stands on how they feel about the raid and just in general. And a lot of people are both happy that there's a challenge there, but they're also sort of critical of the fact that the challenge is not as mechanically designed as it could have been. And I'm not a game designer, so I have no idea. I know it takes a lot of work to figure things out, but I'm hopeful that in the future that we see in the next the House of Wolves DLC, we're going to see a lot of different mechanics. I like the chalice. I think that was probably
one of the most interesting mechanics that I've ever seen in a game. Personally, it's like it reminded me of like Navy SEAL training where you have to pass the snorkel around while you're underwater. Everyone has to hold this to live. Okay, the absence of that. Did add another interesting thing to the fight. Of course, a lot of us just negated it by using Suros Regime or Red Death, but it made us change our loadouts a little bit, which was nice.
Yeah, I think we went in there and we didn't assume that Chalice wouldn't be there, but when they kind of dropped in and said, there's going to be different ways to heal, or healing's not going to be the same this time. We were like, okay, everyone, think about Red Death, think about Suros, Light Beyond Nemesis.
Yeah, if you got an armor piece on that can do that, just swap it on real quick. We kept our like level 32 armor on, but then if we needed to heal, we would just go run around the corner real quick, toss on that piece of armor, walk over an orb, and then flip it back real quick.
Yeah, I think our main strategy was I played Sunsinger with another one, and our entire job was just orb creation for the team the whole time, and it worked. It worked, very effectively. Like our health was, at least for the warlocks. I know Titans are a little bit different. I know Hunters are a little bit different as well. But I honestly I think the Chalice could have been used in a way where the Chalice is the only way to heal, and you can't heal from Red Death, you can't heal from Suros or your super. And that would have made it much more challenging and much more, you had to depend on the chemistry of your team much more than just, okay, I got to depend on my gear. Because there's not everyone's going to have a Suros or a Red Death or a Light Beyond Nemesis or some gear piece that allows you to do that. So
I like to think that they did think of it, though, because there are some perks on the raid armor itself that will create orbs if you, like, get a critical shot or you punch one, something like, or you punch a mob. Something like that. So I like to think that they did think about how people would go into the hard mode fight just by looking at the gear itself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm ecstatic that one, we were able to do it. It took us like 8 hours to clear, which is a lot longer.
Yeah.
Than it took.
Wow.
It took us a very long time, and we were struggling, and it just, I think that just kind of happens. Sometimes you're caught off guard, and you gotta redo strategy. So I know a lot of people have cleared it, and I think it's great that a lot of teams and a lot of individuals are able to experience this content either on normal or hard. Whereas VOG, in my opinion, is still the harder run. It just mechanics wise, it's still much more difficult.
Yeah. I might disagree with you there, as Vault of Glass, they're two entirely different archetypes of fights for the most part. Right. Crota's End is extremely technical. Stuff has to happen on a timer. It has to, everyone has to be in sync with each other. Whereas Vault of Glass, there's a lot of playroom in terms of the fights, like, the Relic Holder in the Atheon fight. There's a lot of different strategies that you can do there, and it's not all necessarily on a timed schedule aside from the teleporting. Right. You can do a lot of different things in there, and it doesn't have to happen the same way every time. Whereas Crota, stuff has to happen pretty much the same way every time. There's not a lot of leeway in terms of what can happen in the fight.
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, I still look back at the old hard mode days, and just essentially the challenge of the positioning, I think, was a lot different in VOG than it was in Crota, because there's certain positions that you have to apply yourself to in Crota to really apply, but it's up to the team where you want to play, because we played on the windowsill in the crystal room. That's our position.
Okay.
And I know a lot of teams played inside the two rooms on either side. Some teams played under stairs. There's a lot of different positioning that you could have used to your advantage. So it's very interesting to see what teams come up with different strategies on that. I think that's the beauty of raiding in general, is like, there's so many different strategies most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, that can be applied, and you can take which one works for you and which one doesn't, and sort of mix and match and get the raid done.
So moving on from the raid, there's been some other changes with Dark Below, and one of them I kind of wanted to address was the weapon archetypes, mainly with auto rifles. We saw auto rifles just completely dominate in both PvP and PvE for like the first month of the game. It pretty much meant if you wanted to do anything, you needed an auto rifle. And now with the Dark Below and the subsequent nerf that came to auto rifles, the normal slower firing auto rifles that were really popular have kind of dropped off, and now there's just these really high rate of fire auto rifles and slightly less high rate of fire auto rifles, and all of them have really low impact. How do you feel about like the weapon design maybe in the game as a whole right now?
I think that they're still trying to figure it out. Like, they're if you go back and look at Halo, they sort of always changed very little, but the changes did impact most of the gameplay. I think that the ARs are the end all be all high rate of fire weapons, and it's what they should be. There's no real SMG class, there's no like PDWs in the game, so the ARs sort of fill that niche in a way, but they also have some other like external guns. The Vanquisher is still pretty prevalent. The Suros is still up there. The new Abyss Defiant, you have a choice on how you want to utilize it. So I think that the AR's change is both good and sort of bad, because I originally in PvP, all you would see predominantly was ARs. There wasn't really much difference, and that's because you were foolish not to run them. You would put yourself at a disadvantage. Now they've sort of taken it back, and mainly, at least on the Xbox side, what you're going to see a lot of is hand cannons. You're going to see a lot of hand cannons, a lot of Last Word, a lot of Thorn. I know on PS4 you guys have access to the Hawk Moon, which I've heard is absolutely fantastic.
It is a wonderful weapon.
Right, and that I think the AR sort of take back and change of design has sort of spiced up PvP and PvE in a good way. I think it's a good change, and I hope they do something with pulse rifles though.
I agree with that. Yeah, pulse rifles, aside from maybe 2 or 3 in the game, like Red Death, the only saving grace that Bad Juju has personally is the fact that it can increase your super energy on a kill, and then the new one from the raid is actually really interesting. I'm gonna hold my breath on actually calling it good, but I used it a little bit in its unupgraded state, and it was a pretty solid weapon for the most part. It had a really nice quick time to kill in PvP, really easy to use in PvE. But yeah, Red Death and Bad Juju, like the exotic rifles, are the only ones that are really worth using for the most part, mainly because of the exotic perks associated with them, and not to the weapon archetype itself.
I think that I've played a bunch of PvP with Bad Juju, and I've recently started playing with the Red Death, and both of them are very interesting weapons. I would have to say the Red Death is definitely better for PvP.
Agreed, yeah.
But the Bad Juju, after playing with it for so long, I can't put it down at PvE because you just get your super so often. I think that those 2 rifles are great designs on how pulse rifles should act, but again, they're exotics, so they should act unique in that way, and they should be a little bit more powerful than the standard of fare. But, you're talking about Oversoul's Edict in a way. Praetor's Timepiece
is effectively the same rifle to Praetor's Timepiece.
And you'd never really, you kind of see it occasionally, but since it's so rare and drop, you don't see it very often. And that thing is pretty, good in PvP too. So I think that there's some pulse rifles out there that are sleepers, but I think the relative lack of use in PvP and even in PvE sort of harms the weapon in a bad way. I think that if they have to do something with either the rate of fire or the impact. They either have to up the impact a little bit, or they have to sort of change the rate of fire on the higher impact ones, in my opinion. Other than that, I think they pretty much perform where they should. They're medium to long range weapons that sort of can be used in close range encounters, but they're not suited for it.
The main thing that I want to see is it would be kind of, I'm gonna try to describe this as best as I can, but basically, say you're trying to hit a moving target with a pulse rifle. If you're following along, the horizontal axis, usually only like 2 rounds hit, because like the last one just doesn't fire quick enough and it just goes past them or something, or the recoil comes into play. Right. I'd like to see something along the lines of the Halo battle rifle come into play here, where it's a very immediate firing of those 3 rounds, a very immediate burst fire. And so pretty much those 3 rounds are going to go where you want them to. They'll at least all 3 will hit the target, just not necessarily in the precision point. So I think that's something they may need to look at changing, because that's the most frustrating part about using pulse rifles in PvP, and to a lesser extent PvE, is I need to hit this guy in the head, so I'm going to aim at the chest. Oh, he's moved ever so slightly, so my 2 precision shots just, went above him and only got 1 chest shot.
Yeah. But the flip side of that is why the pulse rifles get that extra 1 perk. You don't see it very often, but the head seeker, they get that extra perk, which is nice. But I definitely agree with you. I think the time between bullets in the burst is a little too slow, in the sense that you will miss shots predominantly because of motion.
Yes.
And in that respect, it's sort of the difference between life and death in PvP. So I hope we see some kind of change in the future, good or bad. A change is always interesting to see what becomes of it.
Yeah, I do hope it's something more than just, we've upped the damage, because that's, Red Death's just going to be a complete beast then if they just do that.
That would not be good for balancing. I agree.
It's just something just has to change with the overall archetype of the weapons. I think changing like how the bullets actually come out in the burst would be a decent way to look at that. Also, they might just want to look at stability of pulse rifles as a whole, because man, if a pulse rifle doesn't have really good stability on it, it's really difficult to use.
Right. I agree. Red Death is a little weird in that way too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's got that. I mean, you definitely notice it after in the third burst, where it kind of creeps upward ever so slightly. But unless you know what you're doing in PvP, it's and even in PvE, it sort of punishes you in a way.
Yep.
But it also hits incredibly hard.
Yep.
So you have to. Whereas the bad juju, if you stack stability, it becomes almost a laser beam.
Yep.
So it depends on the weapon, and it depends on the player. So, but I'm in agreement with you. I hope they do something beneficial to the pulse rifle in the near future, or in the future at all.
Yeah, I'd agree. How do you feel about hand cannons for the most part? The why I ask this is because in terms of high level players, a very large amount of them, at least from what I've seen, have been exclusively using hand cannons. Pretty much my entire play group, we use hand cannons. A lot of the popular streamers, hand cannons.
I think I stand in an unpopular opinion. I've had a conversation with a few of those. I've had a conversation with Fizzer in his stream, and She's My Nerd, and I've run into these players a couple times. And the group of players that I've played with has played against these guys, and these are fantastically good players.
Yeah.
Like, these are just good guys. And they have great personalities. But I personally think that weapons like the Last Word and even the Thorn, in some respects, are fundamentally broken. Because
I'd actually agree with you there. I think like they overbuffed Thorn. It is way too strong, especially after seeing it in the Iron Banner, like just guaranteed 2-shot headshot from any range. That's kind of broken. And then Last Word has too many bugs associated with it to really call it a good weapon too. And like you'll clearly be aiming down sights. Like in a lot of my PvP videos, you can see me just aiming down sights with it, and then it'll just do 102 damage. It's like okay.
Yeah, and that extra buff where you get that extra damage where like you hit for 102, 111. These things that I understand are sort of prevalent, and they're not as easy as a lot of people think to just take out of the game and fix immediately. But the whole premise of a hand cannon is that it's supposed to reward aimed skill gameplay where you sort of have the patience and the ability to hit headshots and hit shots, and it's supposed to hit very hard. The Last Word sort of flips that, where you can hit fire and hold your trigger down and get away with awesome kills. And I'm not against individuals who use the Last Word, because that's just, I think, the way Destiny sort of is. I think the Last Word is the Suros of Destiny now, where the Suros before they patched it was ridiculous. It's not as bad as the Suros was. The Suros was absolutely ridiculous. You couldn't win against the Suros at all. I think that exotics are a fantastic weapons, but my personal opinion on the matter would be, if they released a game mode that just took exotics out and they kept standard Crucible, but they applied sort of a different mode where there were no exotics, I think that would be more of a true test of player skill, in my opinion, because a lot of individuals that I've seen only use the Last Word, even though they're incredibly good players and they could get away with using other weapons, do it very well. It's sort of, in a way, it's a crutch, in my opinion. I come from competitive games way back in the day. I used to play competitive on the PC, where balance was the best thing. Halo is a perfect example. Everyone had access to a BR, and the weapon was pretty balanced. I've heard the argument that the Last Word is the BR of Destiny, and I disagree. I don't think so. I mean, maybe it is, but my personal opinion, I think that exotics are fantastic, but I think some of them need a little bit of tuning. That's all I would say.
I'd agree with that. Last Word, I pretty much always use that as my weapon, because mainly I guess I'm kind of a min-max player that came over from World of Warcraft. I always want my character to be at the best that it can be, and Last Word is just so good at pretty much every aspect that you want in PvP. Even though it has very low range, you can still pick off people with it, mainly due to its oops, I just hit someone for 102 damage while aiming down sights. It's I'd like to see hand cannons addressed, not nerfed. So anyone listening, we're not calling for hand cannon nerf.
I don't want the nerf either. No, I don't want the nerf either. I think that the best change they could apply to the Last Word is just taking that look at that 102 kind of bug in there. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah,
I'd be fine with that.
It's probably some fixing in terms of netcode or something. But
right.
I'd like to see hand cannons just ever so slightly looked at as well. I think it might have to do with like the quote unquote bullet magnetism that's in the game, where the aim assist kind of helps you get headshots. I've noticed it's a whole lot easier to get them with like hand cannons as opposed to pretty much any other weapon type.
And I enjoy the weapon archetypes in the game. I enjoy seeing all of them, and I enjoy playing with a lot of them. I definitely use Last Word, and I continue to use it. I don't put it away and take the high horse and be like, well, I'm better than that. I think it's a very powerful weapon, and it's very good. But I don't disagree with you on sort of the hitboxes are kind of wonky sometimes.
Yeah, they are.
So I agree with you there. Yeah, we'll see changes. I have a feeling very soon.
I'm not sure if you notice this a lot, but it seems like there's not really much of a there's not really much of a in other games, like in World of Warcraft. I used to be really into high rated arenas there, and there was always this like this meta game that was going on where there would be this one composition of classes that was really powerful, and everyone would try to kind of counter it. And same thing with like some of the other games I played, Magic the Gathering. There's always one or two really powerful archetypes, and then everyone's kind of either building around that or just building fringe things. Well, in terms of Destiny, there's always that really powerful loadout that a lot of players are running. And right now, I'm sure the number one most thing to complain about is like people using blink and shotguns for the most part. That seems to be one of the most popular things to complain about. How do you feel like the terms of the PvP meta as a whole? Do you think there's any room for, balancing or changing or having a meta game in Destiny PvP?
I think the biggest problem with blink shotguns and in general just the special weapon in general is that it gives it to you in the beginning of the game. And if they sort of prioritize the way they look at heavy ammo, the way they give heavy ammo in most games is that, except for the doubles mode, which is a little bit different now, but
I kind of off subject, I really love doubles. I've been playing the crap out of it the past few days, and it's some of the closest games. You really get to see who is good and who is getting carried. It's a very, very fun game mode. But continuing on, yes.
Doubles is, I agree. But what I think they could change in the near future, and what maybe they have already heard of, and some players have talked about, is that if they sort of prioritize the way ammo drops, so you keep your special drops sort of in the same way, you add a little bit more of a timer to them. They only come up every 2 minutes or something like that. And there's only one heavy weapon drop in the game. I understand why they put two in, because you do not want to have teams get utterly destroyed by who controls the heavy. I get that. The biggest problem with heavy right now is that on some of the maps, some of the spawning is a little weird. So if you take Firebase Delphi, for example, you can force people to spawn outside both times. The heavy ammo spawns inside both times. So, you can fundamentally ruin a team's day and control the game once heavy comes up. And I understand that they're game changers or they're game enders. That's the way they're supposed to operate. My recommendation would be, or at least what I would like to see, is that you don't spawn in with special ammo. You have to go get it. And that they take what they do in doubles, whereas you die, you don't drop heavy ammo if you have it. It's gone. That's what I think they should do in all game types, that if you kill someone with heavy, you don't go pick it up. That's it. It's just gone. It's over. That way you negate it. And there's either, it sort of drops the counter, but it also applies that if both teams get heavy and one team outplays the other, they get heavy again. For that aspect. And in my opinion, I think the heavy is a very interesting way to play. I think it also kind of, it sort of ends games. Close games will end because heavy comes up. And I know that's the way it's supposed to be, but I don't know. I think heavies and specials operate very weirdly, as opposed to in Halo, where the rocket launcher and the shotgun were both considered power weapons.
I'd agree with you there. Like the main thing that I see is, as you were saying, ammo. I really hate that a player can just grab pretty much any shotgun and then just exclusively use that as their primary weapon. I've seen that happen numerous times in maps, and it's it's pretty much a one-shot kill from shotgun range. So if they're really good at movement, they are graciously rewarded because they will have an abundance of ammo. They can go for a very long time without ever actually needing to replenish that ammo. And then the main thing is special ammo is very prevalent on the maps. Like any time that I ever need one, I can just go, no, there's some right there. I just go pick it up. And players even drop special ammo as well. It's I think special ammo needs to be toned down a little bit, because the way I see it, there's going to be a lot of players just exclusively using special weapons. I've started to use the final round sniper rifle a lot in my gameplay, mainly because I can easily fire off 2 rounds and then kill someone with that 1 round, and I never have to worry about ammo just because it's so prevalent.
Yeah, I did a video both for PlanetDestiny, and then I did a video recently on my own channel, and it sort of discussed that final round sniper. And personally, I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
I
use
agree
it all the time though, but I don't think that I'm a big fan of balancing games. So I understand where the fusion rifle is sort of out of this whole topic, unfortunately, because it's the way the weapon operates. But I don't think that there should be one-shot weapons in the game besides for heavies and supers and stuff like that, and the shotguns. The fusion rifles are a bit different because they operate differently, whereas they can one-shot you both at close range and sort of at distance too at times.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you would balance those weapons. I have no idea.
I feel
how
like
you would balance that.
Shotguns should, basically the Fourth Horseman, as much as I hate to say it, should be what shotguns are like. They have the Fourth Horseman is the PlayStation exclusive shotgun. Right. If you look at my review, I hate it mainly because its range is so abysmally low. You have to be whispering in someone's ear to actually kill someone with it. And that's honestly how I feel the shotgun should play in the Destiny universe, mainly because there's so many perks for shotguns that enable you to turn them into mid-range fusion rifle type weapons with shot package, rangefinder. If you have one of those 2 perks and plus hammer forge, it's a very long range shotgun now, and it's very difficult to counter that when they can just blast you from across the room in one shot.
You can buy a Vanguard shotgun, the Secret Handshake, that has shot package and hammer forged on it.
Yeah, so that's that's a mini that's pretty much universal remote right there.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie when I say I bought that because I saw those perks on it.
Yeah,
and there's a fundamental difference in Destiny. You can complain about things, or you can pick those weapons up, and besides for the exotics that are more RNG related, you can sort of pick up weapons that will counter that. So if you find yourself in a game getting shotgunned, I would take one out myself and fight fire with fire.
Yeah, most of the time, the best counter to an aggressive player is just to out aggressive them. Some players, they're using last words. It's like, okay, I'll just get closer to you with a shotgun, or that's pretty much what I've been having to do in my games. I will say that. In regards to there should be no one-shot weapons. I think sniper rifles should still, obviously one-shot someone if it's a precision shot. The fact that final round is in the game, though, oh god, I don't know if you've experienced this though, but the final round perk is bugged, at least on my sniper rifle.
It's bugged.
Okay, yeah, I'll occasionally just hit someone with the first round and you'll get the kill. And I'll get the kill. Yeah. I was like, oh, well, that's surprising. Okay.
The footage I put up of the final round predominantly was sort of a way to show players that there was a clip in there where I get a kill with all 3 bullets. Yeah. And the first one's a headshot, the second one is a body shot, and the third one is a body shot through the wall. Now the third one makes sense, right? Because it's supposed to. The first one obviously is a precision shot, should get the kill. No argument there. The second one is what I disagree with. You should never be able to body shot someone and kill them with a weapon like that. I agree. That's ridiculous.
I imagine it's been extremely frustrating for other players to go up against that. Pretty much the first day that I had it, I was just a complete menace in 2s and everything. Which, by the way, in 2s, a final round sniper rifle is just utterly broken.
Yeah, I can imagine that definitely don't. Yeah, some of the 6 teams that play on the Xbox side, guys that took Halo really seriously and kind of came over to Destiny to just to play and have a good time. You're going to see a lot of those individuals run reforged weapons with the perfect set of perks. Yep. and it sort of makes you question. While I enjoy the reforged system, I'm sort of against it in the way that there's no safeguards and regulations placed on it. the best way to balance that sniper is to just take final round off, and there you go. You don't run into that problem, and you can keep armor piercing and unflinching and rodeo and the other perks that you would want on it, but don't allow certain perks on certain weapons.
I'd agree. Yeah.
That fundamentally break them. So hopefully we'll see them. I am going to assume that they are going to address that.
I feel like they will, because I mean, hell, they addressed Pocket Infinity like immediately. I feel that this will be addressed as well. I'm suddenly going to have a sniper rifle with Grenadier perk on it or something when I log in next time.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a welcome change. I think balance in PvP is difficult for them to do because they have to worry about PvE as well.
Agreed.
And finding that perfect balance between both worlds is so very difficult, because you want players want to run on shotguns, but they also want to have some range on those shotguns, that they don't have to get 2 feet away from a hive knight and get sword.
Oh yeah, I agree. The range on the raid shotgun is actually pretty balanced for the most part. You're not getting any too terrible kills from across the room, and it's it's good enough in PvP. And then in PvE, it has just enough range that you can still stay out of a melee knight's range. So I think that's a good model to base shotguns off of.
Yeah. I like that shotgun. The Swordbreaker got a good design on it.
Yep. It's
interesting.
Fun.
It's
fun.
It's a good weapon. Yeah, I agree.
It's very snappy feel to it. You run around quick. You aims down sight really quickly. Yeah.
I agree. I like that. It's a good weapon. I think most of the raid weapons are actually pretty prominent. I know you were talking about the Necrochasm earlier as sort of a weapon to get, but you were unsure on its ability to sort of be used in the field. I don't know. I mean, I think that it sort of has Firefly in a way on it. Not really, but it kind of does.
I'll wait to see exactly what the perk does. If it's as brutal and devastating as a Cursed Thrall Explosion, then that's just going to be fun to use. But at the same time, it's a high rate of fire, low impact bullet hose auto rifle, and that's worse than pulse rifles, in my opinion. It's just not a fun weapon archetype to use. I'm sure some listeners out there, some people really like using that, and I commend you for using it. But the amount of skill that it takes to get the most out of that weapon, just devote half of that time and skill spent learning that weapon to using a hand cannon or a scout rifle, and you will be infinitesimally rewarded more.
No, I definitely agree. I think it's the Vex is a weapon that you want, because it's good.
It's good in its medium close range, brutally devastating damage, fantastic cosmetics, cool lore around it. I love it.
But and then you kind of shift over to what you're talking about, and I like the fact that the weapon requires sort of not really a quest line, but sort of requires a series of upgrades to get to its maximum potential.
Yeah.
I think that is a very interesting way to do weapons.
I definitely hope they bring that in more in maybe House of Wolves. I don't know if they planned it just for this one, but maybe in House of Wolves they'll do another 1 or 2 more weapons like that. I'd like to see something where you may not necessarily have to raid, but it'll still take an equal time investment to get it upgraded to its exotic. Like it'll take no one's going to get this weapon in like the first 3 weeks of the game. It's going to take a very long time, similar to the legendary weapons in World of Warcraft, where you'd have to you got to work for it to get it, but then you're rewarded at the end of it. And when I see Necrochasm, I don't think I'm going to be rewarded for it at the end of it. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I don't like high rate of fire auto rifles, but it seems like it's a weapon that I'm going to level, use it for the review, and then put it in the bank.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, I recently just got a Husk of the Pit. I was one of those
guys.
Unlucky players. Yeah, and so I leveled it up. I think it's a vanity item in a way. Where you kind of take it and you put it on your back and show it off, and people in the tower and your friends are like, oh, cool, look at that guy. That it's that kind of thing. But I also think it could be potentially useful. But I do agree with you. I'm not a big fan of high rate of fire, low impact weapons.
Agreed. I like to feel like I'm actually doing damage to something when I hit it in a precision shot, which is, I guess, why I like using scout rifles and hand cannons for the most part. But auto rifles, I don't like wasting, or I don't like hosing a entire clip into a target and then they still have health left at the end of it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I mean, hopefully, I haven't seen it yet. I think someone already has it. I'm pretty sure a few people already have it. So So I need to look up footage of it and to see it. I'd like to get it myself too. So we'll have to see what it becomes. But I think it does speak good of the future. I think everything that Bungie has sort of done with the raid and the weapons and sort of the way they're testing mechanics all speaks good for the future of what this game is going to become and what it is becoming at the same time.
Agreed.
So
I guess we'll leave it off at that note for the most part. This has been our first podcast at Planet Destiny. Hopefully there will be more to come in the future. I think I enjoyed this. Wally, did you enjoy this as well?
Yes, I think having a good forum to discuss some controversy and apply some criticism, and of course get the viewer's opinion is a good way to see where the community's at.
I'd agree with you there. Well, we'll do another one of these in the near future as well. This has been Patrick Casey with Planet Destiny, and
this has been Sir Wallen with Planet Destiny as well.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Thanks for listening, Guardians.